What's going on, guys? Welcome back to AVP Underworld episode 8. I'm your host Nick, and this time I'm joined by Michael, aka Farewell34.
What a dooski, guys. Glad to be back here on the AVP podcast.
Yeah, I think you have been on the second most episodes, actually, behind Mr. H.
I am the second most frequent guest.
Yeah, speaking of Mr. H, he couldn't make this episode. I know a lot of you guys will probably be upset in the comments and stuff, and I'm still working on getting Alien Theory back on the podcast, and also Nick Hostetter, who I think has been requested on a couple of the other episodes, so I know hopefully that'll happen at some point, so that'd be pretty awesome. And I'm also looking at getting some other guests too that have not appeared on the podcast so far. But before we get into the kind of topics here, Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a relatively chill Saturday, because this is when we recorded this. Chill day. Just been live streaming, hanging out, you know?
Okay,
how about
cool.
yourself?
Yeah, I guess to kind of keep this relevant, I've been reading the Alien Covenant novelization recently.
Ooh.
And I've done a couple, I think, have I done two videos?
Maybe?
Based off stuff that's kind of like different in the novel to the film, and a lot of people seem to like that stuff, so I'll have some more in the future.
I was going to say, you find any juicy topics in that?
Yeah, there's like a lot of stuff that changed apparently. I don't know, like, the problem with novelizations is that you don't know what version of the script it's based off per se, but I have to assume it was a fairly like late draft, because they have to approve the novel like well before the movie comes out, so it's not like, you know, so different or whatever. But I definitely recommend you guys go check out the novel. It's written by Alan Dean Foster, who wrote all of the original 3 Alien novels, so he's a great writer. And I think that the stuff in the novel is different enough to where if you saw the movie, you're going to get a pretty good experience and then some on top of that. So yeah, highly recommend it. It's only like $8 or something, so cool. Go check it out. But with all that said, I think we are ready to get into the first segment of the show where we talk about the recent news. So coming straight out of Licensing Expo, we got our first teaser poster for The Predator by Shane Black, and it has a funny twist on one of the classic quotes of the original film. And I think that it's Olivia Munn's character who says the quote. But what do you think about the poster here? And then I don't think we talked about the set photos on this podcast before, like the recent, you know, the leaked set photos of the
yeah.
So what are your thoughts on like all this stuff so far coming out of it?
Apparently was there like a lot of backlash from this poster?
I don't know. I think most people I saw liked it, but I think the problem was like the tagline or whatever. People are like, that's cheesy or something, that's dumb.
Yeah, you're one beautiful motherfucker. For me, I think just looking at the logo alone, not looking at the tag, I think it looks fine. I think it looks pretty cool. It has kind of that, that heat vision sort of Predator look to it.
Yeah.
So I like that, and then, throwing Shane Black at the top, from filmmaker Shane Black. I think that looks cool. The quote, I don't really care. I think just looking at it visually, just having a giant quote there kind of looks a little off. The actual quote itself, I personally don't have a problem with, but I could have sworn I saw a couple people complaining. I was like, damn, I didn't know people really cared this much about someone saying you are one beautiful motherfucker.
You know, it would have been cooler if it was like the logo and then like the outline of a Predator's helmet or something. That would have been kind of cool, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's fine. Obviously, Shane Black is going to go for the more humorous approach, just because, I mean, that's what he does really in his movies. He's got that kind of mix of action and humor, and hopefully it works out. I'm kind of, the thing that's a lot of people are talking about recently is the photos of the Predators working alongside the humans and actually wearing kind of camouflage gear on. So that's...
they're wearing track pants, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think we've mentioned on another podcast that this movie is definitely going in a different direction. That's trying to go for like a more unique kind of revitalizing of the Predator license, and hopefully it works out, because I'm certainly skeptical. I know Mr. H is really skeptical of the movie.
Yeah.
Fans are kind of split down the middle, so it's one of those things that like you know it can go either way, I think, in terms of the execution of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we talked about it that one time where, the original Predator is more of like kind of like a Macho Man movie.
Yeah.
And this one, it doesn't seem like they're going in that exact approach. So it'd be interesting to see how they execute this one.
I think they're kind of going for like a twist on them. They have the Macho Men in the movie, but then at the same time, you got like a kid in there. You got like a girl who's like a scientist that ends up becoming like a badass later on. So I think they're doing it's a familiar yet different enough approach. I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Plus, it's 2017, like diversify a little bit.
Oh, exactly. We'll never get those action movies of the 80s. I mean, like Commando, Predator, Rambo, all that. That's
Commando's got a special place in my heart, man.
Oh, I love that. We'll get to that at some point too. But I think the next topic that we wanted to talk about just briefly is a box office update for Alien Covenant. Now it's in its second weekend, and unfortunately things are not looking well domestically. So I think the film so far has made about 149 million total worldwide, and 50 of that is domestic. And it cost about 97 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Jeez, that's not including marketing, right?
Not including marketing, and I think they probably spent like another maybe 10 million on reshoots too. So, I think personally the movie has to make around 300 total worldwide to be considered like a success for them to move forward with the next one. And at its current trajectory, I don't think that's possible. Actually, I think that we're looking at a scenario where the movie actually ends up being a bomb box office wise.
Nick has said it himself, guys. Damn, that's how you know this is serious.
That's I mean, honestly, like the timing of the movie coming out, like obviously Pirates of the Caribbean, Baywatch is out there, Guardians of the Galaxy is still out there,
Wonder Woman's coming out next week. It is a loaded season. I think we've talked about this too, like how this summer is very packed with big blockbuster movies, and maybe May wasn't the right window for Alien, or maybe it's just the movie isn't clicking with people, because I like it, but I think that it has a lot of problems. And I think a lot of people recognize that too. Like even general audience members are like, yeah, I mean the movie's okay, but they're this, and this. And maybe that's where you get that mixed word of mouth where people are like not going to see it. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on like the box office and what it's doing so far? Yeah, I'm honestly surprised quite a bit. Alien, as we've been seeing in the online sphere, it's got a large following.
Yeah, just the name alone, because this one actually had Alien in front of it, not like Prometheus, where that.
Exactly, this one had Alien, and they were promoting it a lot like an Alien movie, and I think maybe that word of mouth when people started hearing like, oh no, this is more of just the same old from Prometheus, and they're expanding that versus it being more of like the classic Alien feel. I think that might have had an effect on it, like you mentioned. I'm surprised. I think you're right. I think if it's anywhere between, if it ends up in the 300 to 450 mark, in between those, I think they might go and push a sequel. But who knows, man? It was a pretty mixed response for Covenant. Like I'm in the same boat as you. Like I liked it. I really like certain aspects with the whole David and whatnot. But then again, just looking at it as a film, I did have some issues with it. But it kind of is sad. I hope they do end up going forward, because I think there is more to be told, of David's story and the engineers definitely. And the aliens. So
yeah, it's such a shame too when you look back. Prometheus made I think 440 worldwide in its total run.
That's not bad. I mean,
so that was also a rated R movie. I think that came out a little later though. I think that was like a June release or something, maybe.
And there's still the China box office has not been accounted for as well, right?
Yeah, so it still has not opened in China and Japan as far as I know. So possibly,
fingers crossed.
But I mean that is like I don't know, but. I think we're looking at a situation where like, man, this movie is just not performing well enough, where I'm really getting worried like what's gonna happen. Like maybe there's a case where Scott signed like a contract where he's like, I'm doing Covenant and the sequel like guaranteed or something. Maybe that's already in place, we don't know. But yeah, I am a little bit worried about the future of the Alien movies.
Damn, I was really hoping on those 6 other ones he was mentioning.
Gee, that's the problem. You don't want to mention that you have 6 films before your movie opens, because that seems to be the curse. I mean, King Arthur,
I feel like everyone has been saying that their films bomb. I don't know, man.
Jeez, do not mention 6. You can say 5, 7. Don't 6 is the bad number. Um,
King Arthur, Power Rangers, we see you.
Oh, jeez. What was the other one that just recently announced 6 films?
Resident Evil. They announced
Resident
a
Evil,
6-film franchise.
Yeah. So I guess with all that negativity out of the way, let's get into the main topic of this episode, where we're going to talk about Alien 3, a movie that released in 1992 that had a very mixed reception, and it also kind of had a weird performance at the box office when it came out. I guess before we get into the scripts and the development and our thoughts on it, what are your first impressions and what are your just general thoughts on the movie now that you've seen it a couple times and things like that?
So Alien 3, I saw that one shortly after just seeing Alien in 1 and 2 because I was a little late to the party. But overall, I honestly liked it. I think it's kind of an underrated movie. When you told me that, the community for the most part, people didn't like it all too much, I was a little surprised because I kind of liked how different it was, and it was very, I know there was a lot of behind the scenes issues we're going to get to in terms of the scripts and all that. But I think the final product, it's almost like it's something very different. It's almost like an I'm messing up my words. An Elseworld story, where they're like going to a prison almost, and it's like just killing off the 2 main characters off the bat. Like, it's really ballsy, I think, what they did. And I think towards the end it starts to fall apart for me, but I kind of like what they were setting up, and some of the characters they introduce I think are really dope. The dude from Game of Thrones, what's his name?
Clemens.
Clemens, yeah, he was awesome,
the doctor.
Man. Yeah, they have some dope ideas in there that they even pulled up from some of the older scripts that I think work. I think just the tone and how different it was from the other Alien movies might have turned off a lot of people, but I think what the situation that David Fincher was in, I think he did an okay job.
No, definitely. I mean, my thoughts, I saw Alien 3 also, like, in close proximity when I watched all of the Alien movies when I first saw them, but yeah, I just didn't know. When I first saw it, I thought, honestly, the movie was boring, but I was probably, like, way younger back then, too, and I had just seen Aliens, and I idolized Aliens. I love that movie, and I was hoping that the follow-up would be in that vein again, but yeah, it is such a departure from what people were expecting, killing off the main supporting cast of the previous film, and then the prison setting, and this kind of philosophical, nihilistic themes of the film, and religion, and all that kind of stuff. It's a very depressing movie, too, like unrelenting.
Yeah, it's from beginning to end, pretty much, man.
And, yeah, also, it introduced the concept that the xenomorph can infect an animal. It's a dog in the regular version, and the ox in the assembly cut version. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's a fine movie. It in my opinion, it ended Ripley's trilogy, her story, but then they brought it back for some reason with the 4th one. But we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, overall, I actually do like the movie a lot. I think it's severely underrated. A lot of people just don't even consider it to be a canon. Just don't even just say, yep, for me the franchise ended at Aliens and the rest is just a dream.
No, I know it's because, like, I can understand where they say, Alien and Aliens are on this other level. I completely agree. I don't think Alien 1 and 2 and Alien 3 are in the same level, but I wouldn't regard Alien 3 as being a bad or like an awful movie. I still appreciate it and I like it, but those two are definitely in their own league, I would say.
Yeah, those are timeless movies where just all the pieces fell together, but really, when you look at the development behind Alien 3, it almost seemed like nobody involved knew what they wanted to do, and no one had kind of that unifying voice, like, this is what we're doing. Everyone's going along with it. Everyone's like, nah, I don't know, I want to do this thing, and then I think they had like 14 different scripts. They went through like a half dozen directors with the movie, and
like, it's bad when like people who are rewriting the script are taking ideas from the previous dudes, like, all right, I'll just get this and then try and make it better. Like,
yeah, and I guess since we're on the topic of the scripts, so the first writer that they brought on, before they had any director, before they talked to anyone, they were just trying to develop a screenplay to present to possible candidates. The first script was by William Gibson. Mm-hmm. And his kind of vision for the story was that Ripley was going to be in a coma and that Bishop and Hicks were actually going to be the main characters. So that was kind of an interesting thing, that it wasn't actually going to have a female lead this time, because they had said that, Alien 1 and 2, not a lot of females came out for them, even though you had Sigourney, which is an amazing character. But in their eyes, they're like, well, maybe we can try and develop a male action lead for this movie. And
little did they realize, Sigourney Weaver's role, really is one of the best, and still to this day, women characters in history, I think.
Yeah, but going back to the Gibson script, it was an interesting idea that they had. It was going to be more so like an action movie, and that I think Alien 4... So 3 was going to be Ripley in a coma, 4 was going to be she comes out of a coma, and then they go to the alien homeworld in the 4th one, and then they kill them or wipe them out once and for all. There was interesting concepts, I think, in the Gibson script. I think there was also the whole airborne idea that there are spores that turn people into aliens and stuff, which is a concept that's in Alien Covenant, actually, that they transferred all the way to Covenant. So... but you kind of saw the gist of the William Gibson script, right? Like, the story kind of...
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, what were your thoughts, though, on that kind of idea? Like, having Hicks kind of the main character, more sort of like an action movie.
I think it's definitely... It's an interesting idea. There's, like, one or two, I think, scenes, like, more the action scenes I think they described.
Yeah.
That sounded really cool.
Uh-huh.
Definitely something very interesting. Almost similar to how... the two characters are killed in the beginning. It's just like, yep, we're going to throw Ripley to the side and just have Hicks do his thing with Bishop. I don't know if I would have liked it as much.
Yeah. There was also a lot of underlying themes of the Cold War aspect of it, because there was like the what was it, the Union of Progressive Peoples or something? They're kind of like the communist allegory or something.
The USS or something, or the UPP?
Yeah, the UPP.
That was a station, in the film.
And then they had, like, Anchorhead, which is, like, the big kind of space station that the whole movie would take place on mostly. But, I mean, it sounded interesting. I know a lot of people look back at it and are like, man, I wish that would have happened. Like, we could have got Hicks still alive and so more guns, more aliens. But, at the same time, conceptually, you're just like, yeah, but, I mean, it's just really going to be like Aliens 2. Like, we're just doing the same thing again. I mean...
Yeah, and it would just be them two pretty much, and then some other side characters. We don't know if it would really get to the same levels Aliens did. Although I will say they had a second alien queen thrown in the mix.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, yep.
So that might have been cool to see the return of that, but like you mentioned, it might not have the same kind of gravitas to it or emphasis, because it's like oh, it's just a rehash of Aliens,
Yeah, and I think that the director that was brought on board too when they ultimately did say, like, yeah, the Gibson script's okay, like, let's shop around for directors. I think they brought on Rennie Harlin. He was the first director that came on board, who he had just directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4, I think, and they liked his ideas and stuff. And it's interesting because he actually didn't like the Gibson script or the Eric Red draft that he was... Because his whole thing was that he didn't want to do just another rehash of the first two movies, and that's kind of what they're leaning towards with the first scripts, like Eric Red and William Gibson's drafts. They're kind of like, corridors, bulkheads, guns, and aliens, which we've seen already twice. And the interesting thing is that Rennie Harlin actually pitched Alien 3 that he wanted to go to the aliens' homeworld and actually go have Ripley and her go with these team of scientists to go figure out
to do a genocide. Is that what they were trying to?
No, that might have been part of it, but I think it was mostly just to like explore what is the alien, like what is it designed for, like what is it, stuff like that. And that sounded interesting to me, but they were like, no, that cost too much money back then. I mean,
true, yeah, because that Gibson script was, I think, done in '87. So just realize how many years development this movie was getting done, guys.
Oh yeah,
he wrote it in '87, and it didn't come out until '92.
Yeah. So Rennie Harlin leaves. He quits.
Yep.
And the next director that they bring on is Vincent Ward, who had just directed a film called The Navigator. I think it was called The Navigator: A Medieval Odyssey or something like that. And his vision was completely different. His was like, whoa, this is gonna be a whole different movie. Yeah. Nothing to do with the Gibson script, the Eric Red draft, or the homeworld idea. This is gonna be, now Ripley lands on a wooden clad vessel in space, a space station, that's been sheathed in wood, that's operated by this monastic group of monks, the Luddite monks, which is like, when you think about that, a wooden planet with monks, what? Like,
yeah, it's like, dude, you get creativity points, definitely.
Yeah, like, okay, wooden planet monks, then you throw in an alien on that, like, that's just like, whoa, okay, that's some crazy stuff. But yeah, what are your thoughts, generally, like, what you know of the script of Vincent Ward's, and because his script, ultimately, a lot of the ideas ended up in the final movie, like, he actually has a story credit in the movie, so, like, what are your thoughts on his draft and his vision?
I think out of all of them, I think his probably stands out to me maybe the second most or the most. Yeah. I think the whole idea of the wooden planet, the monks and the relationships with, you know, some of the characters, I think that gets carried on a lot into the final draft, and I think it's because they're pretty cool, man. Like, they obviously get replaced with like the prisoners or the monks, instead of just being a wooden planet. It's just like a prison. Also, I love how the wooden planet looks like the Death Star, but
yeah,
there's a sketch online you guys can check out, but I think it's pretty cool, honestly. I wish we saw the sheep, even though it's like the same thing.
Oh, the alien sheep get infected? Yeah.
Yeah. But how about you, man?
I think out of all the scripts that it's like one of they should put this on like a top 5 unproduced kind of sci-fi.
Yo, you should actually make a video on that, Nick. Guys, comment if you want Nick to make a video. The top 5 unseen Alien 3 scripts or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, out of all the scripts, this one is the one that I personally found the most interesting, because before I had researched into it, I thought it was weird. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. A wooden planet, monks. What are we doing here? But when I actually looked into it, I watched the documentary on it. I looked up the screenplay outline, the interviews and stuff. That it actually really did sound interesting to me, and it was the most fleshed out version of the movie. It had a lot of like religious undertones of like life and death, and then I think it was going to be a really interesting time too for Ripley's character, because the director kind of described the movie like this is the perfect kind of story for her, because in Alien 1 she's kind of like this novice, and then Alien 2 she's like a veteran infantry woman, and then in this one she was going to be like an older person kind of looking back and reflecting on her life, you know, the life that she missed out on, like her daughter died and everyone that she knows kind of dies, and it's kind of like, you know, she's thinking that there's like an evil within her, and then you also explore the idea of the alien being inside of her too. I think this is the first version that introduced that idea too. So honestly, like, yeah, I think that it was a huge missed opportunity. And I think too, the thing that annoyed me watching the documentary was one of the executives talking about it, saying that he was trying to do an artsy-fartsy alien movie, and I'm like, what? Like,
artsy-fartsy, guys.
Yeah, he literally said the first director was trying to do it in an artsy-fartsy way, and what we wanted to do was a commercial kind of action movie like the first two. And I was like, did you watch the first two movies? Because Alien is definitely not a commercial action movie at all. Like, what you...
I'm not too sure what they were smoking back then.
So honestly, I think it's a missed opportunity, because I think this movie would have been special. I don't think it would have been a masterpiece like the first two, but I think it would have been special enough and interesting and unique enough like the first two. And really, when you ultimately look at Alien 3, it isn't as unique as the first two. It doesn't have that kind of quality about it. So I think this one would have been special.
No, definitely, because like if you say like, oh, they went to a prison, it's like, oh, okay, a prison. But if someone told you they went to a wooden planet,
yeah,
I'd be like, oh shit, like that's kind of interesting. And there's monks, what? Like, it definitely, I think Alien 3 seems a little more, I guess, uninteresting and bleak from like those kind of details. But I don't know.
No, definitely. So I guess since we got kind of all of that out of the way, I mean, that was the Cliff Notes version of on those scripts.
Yeah, I would say if you guys want to get more informed on all those other scripts and like more nitty gritty details, be sure to just go search it up. You can find them.
Yeah, or comment below. I'll make a video maybe on each one, kind of going in depth. If you guys want to see something like that, I mean, I'd be down for it. But Yeah, I guess going back to the finished product, Alien 3.
Yeah.
I personally think that the assembly cut, which it restores, I think like a half hour, that one is the best version, hands down. That's the one you want to watch. But I guess just in general, what do you think works with the movie, and what do you think doesn't work with the movie?
All right, so I think some of the
like characters and stuff like that.
I think I actually really like the mood and atmosphere. It's very creepy and ominous, I think.
Yeah.
Because obviously you're in a prison. It's very bleak. The situation is like. I think what was it? The guy you mentioned earlier, Clemens.
Clemens.
Awesome introduction in character. The prison. What was the prison leader?
Oh, Superintendent Andrews.
Superintendent. He was I liked him. I thought he was an interesting character, even though he's kind of like a scumbag. What he tries to do at one point.
Yeah.
I really like the themes that they were going for, although it wasn't executed the best. I think David Fincher's directing is okay in that movie. Like, I think the style he goes for he was ahead of his time.
What do you think about the Dylan character? Like the one with the he kind of leads the religious people in there.
He was okay for me.
You didn't like him? He had all the great speeches in the movie though.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I liked the speeches, but overall I thought he was okay. He didn't really do it for me too much.
Yeah.
Ripley this time around, what did you think about her?
It's interesting. She starts off a little bit kind of, you can tell when she shaves her head, that's kind of like a character progression, I think. Because you can tell in the first 20 minutes or so, she's still just in shock of like what's happening. And then I think that, throughout the movie, she definitely progresses and comes into her own. And I think that she does have a great character arc, that she realizes that there's just stuff that is beyond her control and everything. And I think that also goes back to the idea of the whole everything bad happens to people that she comes into contact with. Is there like something wrong with her? I think that the movie is almost like a redemption story, almost.
No, that's really true, because she ended Aliens thinking like, I'm going to take care of this kid, I'm going to be her mom, whatever. Yeah. I'm a protector, to then starting Alien 3, just like, oh, I fucked up, like, she's dead now.
Uh-huh.
So I think you pretty much hit it on the head for me.
And also the fact that she realizes that the only way she can really defeat the alien is if she herself kills herself. That she has to sacrifice herself, and she goes into the what is it, like the lead works or something? But the crucifix position and everything. So I think that was interesting. That whole idea. It was also cool to see that little Bishop cameo too. Like I think it was the creator of Bishop comes at the end or something. That was cool.
Yeah.
I like that aspect.
What happened to the bald dude?
The Morse or whatever.
We need a spin-off with him.
Lives. Yeah. What did you think of the alien in this movie? The dog or the it's an ox alien.
Like an animalistic alien.
Yeah, it's called the Runner alien. But yeah, what did you think of that one?
I thought it was cool when we watched it together. I mentioned I didn't like how it was like superimposed onto the screen. I thought it looked a little weird.
Yeah.
Apart from that, though, the actual alien, I thought it was cool. It was the way that it attacked was really interesting in this movie. Like, it was very precise, vicious.
Yeah, this movie is really gory too. Like all the deaths.
Oh yeah, dude! When the one guy gets hit with the fan, or like he goes through it, that was bad.
Also, this alien can spit out acid too.
Mm-hmm. I think the alien itself, I actually liked. I thought it was cool. But just the way that it looked and it was superimposed, it looked off to me. But yeah. How about you?
I think that's the funny thing is everyone thinks it's CG. They're like, oh, it's bad CG, but it's actually a rod puppet that was blue screen. They put it on there, and the unfortunate thing is when you actually look at the behind the scenes, they put a lot of work into it and stuff, and they just completely screwed it over in the transition, the process, I guess, to the film.
That does suck, yeah.
Yeah, the lighting is off on it and stuff. It looks noticeably different than the rest of the environment. You're like, that's kind of wonky, but yeah, I think I really did enjoy that aspect of introducing an animal-born alien. I think that was awesome.
Speaking of the alien, that one ending sequence, that hallway,
yeah,
when they're all like running through the maze, I really like that sequence.
Oh, the alien vision mode.
Yeah,
yeah. The funny thing, I think they did that by they actually turned the camera upside down and did all those shots to get like that weird kind of lens effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some trivia for you guys. But yeah, like overall, my final thoughts, just wrapping up on the movie really quick. It's a good movie in my opinion. It has some flaws, I think, that are just structurally and just came down to the development cycle, that David Fincher wasn't allowed to make the movie he set out to make, and that was just ultimately a thing that happened behind the scenes. But as it stands, the assembly cut, I think, is a very good movie, and I think it's just vastly underrated, and people really should go back and give it another watch just to judge it, I think, now, because of there was such a knee-jerk reaction to when it came out. No one wanted to watch it again. But what are your final thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, just going on what you said, I think it's a bad movie? No. Do I think it's great? I don't think it's great, but I think it's a good enough movie. I really enjoy it, especially if you think about the circumstances that it was in development hell. All these hands in the kitchen. The director first time couldn't make the movie that he wanted to, and even to the point where they're on set and they're like they don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
For them to make a film as competent as that and good, in my opinion, I think they did a good job. I thought a lot of the themes in it were dope. Like you mentioned, there are things here and there that aren't too great, but overall, I think it's a good movie for me.
Yeah, so definitely go check out Alien 3, and especially the assembly cut of the movie, because that is the superior version of it. But I think we've reached our final segment where we talk about your viewer questions. So thanks again, guys, for submitting these with the hashtag AskAVP Underworld. So our first question comes to us from Ruby Rude Infinite. He says, what happened to the second Neomorph in Alien Covenant? So that's a good question, and I think that the filmmakers should have asked that question themselves. Like, what?
They should have really shown a scene, just like just throwing that in there.
They should have been like, hey, yeah, in the editing bay, they should be like, yeah, so what happened to that other one? Just kind of ran off. Okay, ship it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember when I finished watching the movie, I messaged Nick right away, and I was like, well, not right away, like we were talking about it, and I mentioned, I'm like, wait, so did the second Neomorph just run back into the ship? Is that what happened?
Yeah. But, so, essentially what happened to it, a lot of people seem to think that it died in the wheat field when it first attacked them, but it actually didn't. If you watch the movie, because I've seen it several times, and I've gone online and watched clips of it again, but if you actually look during that attack, when they first kind of, it's at night and everything, one of them gets shot and it runs away. You don't see it again. And then the second one jumps in, and that's when David shoots up the flare gun, and then it runs away. So right there, boom, you have one of them left unaccounted for, and the second one shows up obviously later on, gets killed by Orem. But yeah, so one of them was supposed to show up at the end of the movie, like when they're kind of running to the lander that Danny McBride brings. It was supposed to pop up right there, and it was going to have the Neomorph running from one side and the Xenomorph running from the other side. And they were supposed to kind of, fight the humans, the survivors. And I don't know why they cut it out, but it was originally in one of the test screenings of the movie. So, There you go. Hopefully that answers your question in a roundabout way. But next question, Luke Dewhurst says, why did the engineers on Paradise not look like anything in the first film? Guessing he means Prometheus. He says they weren't even the same scale. Is it possible they weren't engineers in just a different alien species? So, Mike, what do you think about this? Before I say anything, what do you think?
I see where you're coming from, because if you look at the original Prometheus engineers versus what we saw, very different.
Yeah.
Not very, but there's a significant difference, I would say, in how they look and where they are. I would say they are the same species, but from different times, or from different positions. You know what I'm saying? The people who we saw in Alien Covenant, they look kind of like peasants almost, and more of in an updated version of the species. And I think Prometheus were like the older versions of them from different generations, possibly higher class, etc. That's just what I thought. But Nick, how about you?
Well, so just to answer the first part, yes, they are engineers. They're not like a different alien race. It's been confirmed that they are engineers, and that this is the planet in the movie is their homeworld. And I think the explanation as to why they look different is because Well, I think it's another more reasons. I think honestly, my theory is that there's kind of two factions of the engineers, or maybe more than two factions. But anyways, the ones that we saw in Prometheus were kind of like the military guys, you know. That's why their eyes were black. They had like, if you notice too, in the Prometheus engineers, they had like black veins on their head and stuff. So my theory is that they kind of inject themselves with a controlled version of the black goo that makes them not die. But just, it's kind of like a roids or something, like, you know, steroid.
I'm
like
juiced up, bro.
I'm juiced up on black goo. Yeah, something like that. I think maybe that factors into it or something. But honestly, the most simple answer would be like they just didn't have the budget to make them all look like the Prometheus ones, because there's a lot more in this movie, right? There's like a huge crowd of them, so dressing them all up like that would cost a ton of money. And I think another answer you could say is, well, why don't they look the same? Why don't they all look the same? Because maybe they're just different, like humans are. Not every human looks the same. So I mean, there you go.
That's a valid point. Yeah.
Oh, he also has a sub question. He says, why was it, or does it explain why the black goo was airborne in this movie? And I think no, it doesn't specifically say why, but I think that it's just one of the features of the black goo that we just didn't see previously. So yeah, last question is from a Twitter question, actually, from Trav Dees. He says, is it ever explained how the xenomorph's second jaw is able to puncture almost everything that it bites? No, it's never been explicitly said why, but it has been said and seen on film that the second jaw can puncture through human bone and metal, most metals. So it's a pretty powerful kind of like piston membrane in their jaw that kind of, you know, fires out and kills everything basically. So interesting stuff there. But what are your thoughts on this? Why is that second inner jaw so powerful?
I think it's got a really tight spring there. And,
you gotta charge it up. You
gotta charge them, and there's a meter inside the xenomorph's mind, and it's HUD or something. But no, I'm just playing. I actually have no idea. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's an unanswered question. I get. It's just kind of like speculated that it's just powerful enough to punch through anything, really. So
damn, who needs to punch? It'll just stick out its extra jaw.
Yeah,
xenomorph second jaw explained.
Second jaw explained. Oh my god. So that kind of wraps up the episode, though. Thanks everyone for checking out AVP Underworld episode 8. I've been your host, Nick, and if you want to find me on Twitter and tweet me questions for the podcast or just talk generally about Alien and Predator stuff, you can find me on Twitter at who's_Nick. Michael, where can the people find you?
Yeah, you guys can follow me over on my Twitter and Instagram at failwell34, or check out my YouTube channel at failwell34 as well.
Alright, awesome. So be sure to tune in for the next episode, and we'll catch you guys then.
Take care.